Hey, hello everybody, here's what's coming up tonight on News Center Now. Corporal Eugene Cole's accused killer is in court after 4 days on the run.
It's important to keep the fury, but expect and demand results quickly.
The Yarmouth, Massachusetts police chief had to bury one of his own officers and is outraged that a deputy in Maine was killed just weeks later.
The Celtics might be the home team, but this South Portland couple is cheering on the 76ers and their head coach.
Smart meters are an obvious target.
And thousands of Central Maine Power customers blame smart meters for high prices. We go inside the CMP testing lab.
That's a story you can only see on News Center Now. Witnesses say John Williams was armed with a shotgun and a bulletproof vest on the night that he allegedly shot and killed a Maine law enforcement officer. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. John Williams stood before a judge today in Augusta after 4 days of hiding in the woods of Somerset County. Williams is charged with intentional and knowing murder for the death of Somerset County Deputy Corporal Eugene Cole, a 13-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office.
Court documents today piece together the moments leading up to the shooting. Several of John Williams' friends claim that they picked up and dropped off Williams at locations in Skowhegan and Norwich Walk. A few of them say they saw the suspect with a shotgun and bulletproof vest, and according to court documents, Williams called a friend telling him directly that he shot an officer in the head, but he couldn't remember if the officer snuck up on him or if Williams snuck up on the officer. Today's documents only begin to answer the questions that are piling up over the past week. What led to the confrontation between Corporal Cole and Williams? Did Williams admit to the murder? Don Kerrigan will have much more from the courtroom coming up on News Center Maine at 5:30. And while Corporal Cole's family seeks justice in the courts, they are grieving alongside the entire first responder community.
Corporal Cole was shot and killed not long after the death of another law enforcement officer in New England. Those who are all too familiar with loss are offering support to those now enduring the same pain here in Maine.
You want a son. Sean is the son that you want.
The police department in Yarmouth, Massachusetts,
He's everything you want and a wonderful human being.
Is grieving the loss of one of their own. Earlier this month, Officer Sean Gannon was shot and killed while on duty. His canine Nero hospitalized with injuries.
Nero's doing great.
Not even 2 weeks later, Corporal Eugene Cole of the Somerset County Sheriff's Office was shot. The search for his killer spanning 4 days. The news of another deadly officer shooting reigniting the anger for those who just went through it.
I have a job to do to run a police department, get our officers back on the streets in a healthy way, do the very best we can for them. But I'm caging that fury and positioning it in the right way so we can make a difference.
We need change. People are crying for change.
Denise Morency Gannon and her husband's Florida vacation abruptly ended with a phone call.
As a mother, I worried every day.
Her son shot and killed in the line of duty. She says she's living her worst nightmare.
When you lose someone to a murder like this happened, it changes everything.
The mother of fallen officer Sean Gannon says the stories people have told her in the last few weeks have been the light she has needed to get through.
This explosion of support we just couldn't get over.
Much like the Somerset County residents who've shared countless stories of Corporal Cole.
This is so fresh for us that we understand what you're going through in your community.
And for those that never met Officer Gannon, thousands of letters flooding into the Yarmouth Police Department, offering condolences from all over the world.
Support your sheriff's office, your police department. Let them know how important they are to you.
And tomorrow on News Center Now, we'll hear more from Chief Frederickson and Mrs. Gannon about the change they want to see to keep tragedies like these from happening again.
And we have much more about Corporal Cole's legacy and funeral arrangements on our website. That's where you can also find information about John Williams' court date and all the details from the police affidavit.
All right, let's switch gears now, shall we? Keith, it was pretty nice out there today. I can't really complain besides some clouds.
And Keith's made some pretty big promises for this week. Let's see if he's a promise keeper.
I always am, Lee. You know this. We're in good shape. And yeah, today was kind of interesting because there are showers on the radar, especially now, but a lot of them did dodge the coastline, and they're across Aroostook County and a little bit here into the central part of the state. So we put this loop. You'll see the motion of all of this and this plume of moisture just to the north of Bangor. But along the coastline, it's been dry and actually relatively sunny through much of today. Big upper level low, just a beautiful satellite radar composite. You can see the spinning nature of that upper level low. Gives us just enough instability for those showers ongoing and for the next couple of hours. And then another chance of some isolated showers tomorrow before we start to warm things up. And again, the cloud cover pretty diffuse here across the coastline. Not much going on. Temperatures, you can see where it's been sunny, where it hasn't. Not all that warm, but still with the sunshine, a decent end to the day. So showers fizzle tonight, a few more possible tomorrow, but I think most of tomorrow is dry. Temperatures in the 50s along the coastline, right around 60 as you head inland through the afternoon. This upper level low then retreats. After that, we're off to the races for Wednesday and Thursday. As Lee alluded to, we've been looking at this warm up for over a week. Good news is it will deliver. We'll talk details in just a few minutes, guys.
Gonna like those details. All right, still to come on now.
I expect that we'll probably outpace most of our highest years for field tests.
Customers have lost trust in CMP smart meters after the winter electric bills skyrocketed. We'll give you a look at the smart meter testing program only on News Center Now.
Coming up tonight on 207, talk about pressure in the kitchen. You'll see how some student chefs from Maine fared in a national cooking competition. And what's new in video and music with the boys from Bolmos on 207 at 7.
He's doing well. He's doing great. He's goal oriented, and he wants to get to Maine. So we think he's going to be going there.
Good.
He's sad, but he's doing well.
Former President H.W. Bush is determined to get to Kennebunkport this summer. That was his granddaughter Jenna Bush Hager on the Today Show on Friday.
Today we got another update on his condition. The family spokesperson says President Bush is still in a Texas hospital but looking forward to going home soon. And then traveling to Maine this summer. 41 was admitted into the hospital, of course, not too long ago, just 1 week after the death of his wife of 7 decades. Theirs is a love story that touched so many Americans over the years, and President Bush would probably be the first to tell you it's the little things that show your love. Little things like socks.
And on the day of her funeral, 41 wore these socks covered in books in honor of the former First Lady's dedication to literacy. And there's more to this sock story. They are made by an entrepreneur with Down syndrome, and he soon found out he has a lot in common with the former president.
Stephanie Whitfield has that story.
Hi everyone, I'm John Gordon.
This 22-year-old is an entrepreneur from New York. His passion is socks, and last year he found out he and a certain former president have that in common.
So we sent him a box of socks.
We caught up with John and his dad Mark on the road.
And then this March, his office called and they wanted more socks. So what did we do? We sent him more socks.
Right, I did.
And that's how the friendship went on. President George H.W. Bush sent John a personal note. So John sent him his special Down syndrome superhero socks, which he proudly wore.
It makes me feel good. I'm so inspirational.
So inspirational?
Yeah.
Most recently, the president called on John when it was time to say goodbye to his beloved wife. This order? A pair of crazy socks inspired by her commitment to literacy.
And as a dad, to see the President of the United States make a connection with my son, that's overwhelming.
But Mark Cronin points out, John and the President share so much more than socks. They both live life with the same fundamental belief, that we all do better by helping others.
And if you wanted to match 41, you're going to have to wait a while because the library socks for literacy in both crew cut and knee high are sold out on the John's Crazy Socks website. Apparently, the company isn't expecting another shipment until August, when you don't really need socks, so they are very much in demand.
Oh, a sweet story there. Okay, a behind-the-scenes look at CMP as thousands of customers complain of skyrocketing bills and...
Oh yes, I'm always seeing what he's wearing, the suit, and to see if the tie goes with the suit.
He might be the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, but back in Maine, Mom's just trying to make sure he looks presentable. That's coming up next.
Warm Up Wednesday is on the way, and so is your full forecast.
They are wrong. CMP is wrong. I don't know what they're covering up, what they're hiding, but they are hiding something.
More than 97,000 CMP customers saw major spikes in their electric bills this winter, sparking an investigation by Maine's Public Utilities Commission. CMP says people across the country saw a spike because of an unusually cold winter.
Yeah, customers aren't convinced, though. Many think that the smart meters might not be working properly. The PUC investigation is going on. But in the meantime, Christina Rex is getting a first look into the lab where these smart meters get tested. So, Christina, been a busy year for CMP.
Absolutely, you guys. So this year so far, CMP has already responded to more than 1,900 requests for meter testing at people's homes. That's about 4 times more calls than a typical year. CMP insists the meters work properly and that they've never had one fail since the program started in 2012. We got a look into how the meters are tested before they're sent to your home.
On a smart meter, in the last 5 years that I've been around and doing this type of role, we haven't had any really fail.
CMP sticks by its smart meter program and says the automatic meters are far more accurate than the analog meters still used by about 5,000 customers.
They used to fail on a fairly regular basis.
The smart meters go through a rigorous testing program, one that Nicholas Levesque, who oversees the testing, says exceeds state requirements.
Well above and beyond what we're required to do, but it's just good utility practice to do that.
All meters are tested at the manufacturer. Then, once they come to CMP, about 10% of them are tested, both for accuracy and functionality.
He's going to put that device on the front of the meter, which will help read the data.
The test is automatic and run by a third party. Meters tested in-house are required to be within 0.5% accuracy.
Going to do that at both a full load, a heavy load, as if you had your washer and your well pump running. And then it's going to do it at a light load as if you had just a few light bulbs running.
The company tests meters at people's homes, too, if a customer requests service.
We are testing in the field, we're testing in the lab, we're not seeing failures.
He says customers should find confidence in the automatic testing equipment and the smart meter accuracy.
The equipment is essentially state-of-the-art. It's fairly new.
And he asks that people find confidence in CMP's employees.
I trust the employees and I trust our vendors and our manufacturers, and we always try to trust, but we do try to verify, and that's why we do the extra testing.
Levesque, says service calls have started to drop, most likely because of warmer weather and electric bills returning back to normal, he says. So there's no guarantee, you guys, that an inside look into CMP and hearing from CMP is going to bring any comfort to these customers who think they might be being lied to in this case. Obviously, the PUC investigation is still ongoing. They're in the process of trying to find an auditor and to pick someone to conduct that audit into CMP. So hopefully we'll get those answers eventually.
Well, I mean, obviously still so many people with questions, so we'll keep looking and try to find those answers until we finally do. So that's why we have you. All right, thank you, Christina, appreciate it. You can catch some pretty good wells off the coast of Maine, but nothing quite like this one. This is the world record for the biggest wave ever surfed in history. It's over 80 feet tall. Rodrigo Coxa in Portugal was the one who wrote it. Last record wave was 78 feet. So that is really
because I didn't see.
cool.
Look at him down there. When a bird is running away from the crest, you got problems. Look at the bird.
Wait, what is the bird?
No, the bird.
Oh, the bird.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was
It's a scientific term that you'll learn about in brain
By the way,
drops.
real quickly.
It's the two-winged bird.
Very quickly before we get to weather, I will say, we were talking about the CMP thing kind of offline there, it was brutally cold December, late December, early January. We haven't seen a stretch like that in a long time.
Sure.
For that to correspond with people's concerns, I think is probably more than coincidence. But
unless your bill is also going up in April.
If that happens, then it might be different.
Just saying.
Yeah, that might be different.
What's it looking like out there?
No trust in the man, huh, Lee?
Just saying.
But you don't forget that when it started, though, was January, and it was really, really cold. So anyways, the weather controls everything, Lee. That's what I'm telling you, all right? We got some showers out there popping up across the state. A lot of us, though, were dry through today. If anything, we undersold how today could turn out pretty nice, particularly along the coastline. But it was because of this broad-scale feature, this upper-level low. You can see it swirling over all of New England. So typically, these give you isolated showers, and that's what's happening. It's just that a lot of the showers have been in the mountains and across northern Maine, and the coastline has been relatively quiet all the way to 95 through the day today. Those showers will continue to pop up. Temperatures will stay about where they are, upper 40s, low 50s, which is below average for this time of the year. But you can see where the most sunshine has been compared to where it's a little bit cooler. So showers continue, but by later tonight, they tend to wane. A lot of the shower activity is driven by that upper level low and the heating of the surface. Tomorrow, we get some clouds in here early, but I think tomorrow afternoon is good. And then Wednesday, off to the races temperature-wise. Here's what I'm thinking for Wednesday: 84 in Lewiston, 85 in Sanford, 79, or it could get to 80 in Portland as well, 80 in Bangor. So some really warm temperatures. Thursday is warm, but not as big a slice. It's in the upper 70s, low 80s, but as you head towards Millinocket, Caribou, Eastport, it's in the 50s there. There will be a couple of showers around Wednesday night, overnight, and then through early Thursday before another round comes in Thursday afternoon. But overall, you're not going to notice that as much as you're going to notice how nice the weather is. So inland forecast 82, 80, and then back down to reality a bit on Friday. Coastal locations have a shot at 80, so I pinned them there Wednesday and Thursday. After some showers and split state forecasts on Friday, the weekend is looking good. Not as warm, but between 62 and 70 and a good deal of sun. So overall, we flipped the switch on this one. We're in good shape.
We like it today. We can
agree on that.
All right, there you go. No problems at all. All right, a lot of you weighing in on the CMP story that we just ran on our Facebook page right now on our live feed. Benjamin says, my CMP actually never really changed. It's actually gone down by like $20.
And Donna says, I called CMP about my bill and the fact it went up so much, and they tried accusing me of causing it. I'm very budget oriented, and now they're demanding I pay much more or they will disconnect me.
As always, these stories are generally in response to questions you're asking, so make sure you take part in our Facebook live stream so you can ask the questions, we can give you the answers, and chat with you live. It's like talk radio, but for TV.
Exactly. We love it. It keeps us occupied, too, during commercial breaks. There's that, too. Okay. When the Boston Celtics take on the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round of the playoffs, you'll have to excuse a large group of Mainers if they're rooting against, you know, our team.
Well, there's a good reason, okay? The head coach of the Sixers is Brett Brown, born and raised in South Portland and the son of Hall of Fame coach Bob Brown. We caught up with Bob and his wife Bonnie before they drove down to Boston to watch their child in action.
He is so much more prepared and more knowledgeable than I ever was in coaching.
In his 52 years of coaching basketball, Bob Brown has had countless highs and lows. But what his son Brett has accomplished this season may trump them all. Coming into his 5th season as the 76ers head coach, Brett's record was 75 wins and 253 losses. Management stuck with its guy, and this year the Sixers went 52-20 and have advanced to the conference semifinals.
No coach that you can tell me lasted with such a losing record as Brett has. So I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the way he has handled the situation.
The Browns get to a handful of games in person each season, but watch most games at home, but never live. They record the games and then wait for a phone notification to tell them when it's over.
And then, if they've won, I get very excited and go announce it to Bob, who then decides to watch the game. So he sits up half the night and watches the game after the fact when we know they've won.
So what if they lose?
And if they lose, I go to bed and I don't watch the game.
Both Bob and Bonnie have superstitions about watching their son in action. For Mom, it started when Brett was a Red Riot.
The high school games, when they'd be in the tournaments, I would go sit in the ladies' room because I couldn't deal with that either. And now I'm stuck in those huge gyms with all these screaming people, and I really have no escape.
A mother's nerves never go away.
No, they don't. They really don't, and I try.
While for Dad, watching instead of coaching causes anxiety, like the last time he went to the Garden to watch the Celts and Sixers.
All of a sudden you could feel you could feel the game escaping. So I got up and I walked around. I walked around the garden a couple times and then looked in. We were ahead. I came back and sat down.
Okay, so when I left their house today, my cheeks were killing me. I smiled or laughed the entire time I was there. Just such great people, and certainly rooting for their son. And there's a lot of Mainers that are going to likely do the same.
I love too that they watch to see if they won, and they won't watch the whole game unless they know that the team won.
No, they won't watch any of the game.
They won't
if
at all.
they lose, not watching that one.
I read the last page of every book I read just so I know how it ends, and then I go from there. I know it's so strange.
That's a little broken.
I like their strategy there.
Okay.
Okay. A farm animal wandering through Windham, nobody in sight. Hi, buddy. Just a goat in the road. That's So Maine, sent in by Krista from Windham. But this is actually a Snapchat direct to Lee, so just another way to send us your Maine moments.
That was so funny. And what's more Maine than sharing a meal with your neighbor? How about a chipmunk and a squirrel snacking together? That is the way life should be. Thanks to Forrest, cool name, for sending us this on our Facebook page. That's also another way you can send us your That's So Maine moments. You can also use the hashtag That's So Maine, and we can find it on any social media platform.
Very cool. Okay, here's a look now at what's coming up in our next half hour. We are just starting to figure out what happened to Corporal Eugene Cole on the night he was killed. We spoke to his family in court today as his accused killer was charged with knowing and intentional murder. That's next.
And a definitive ranking of the best laundry detergents. Anyone with children is going to want to see this story, that and more, coming up on Newscenter Maine at 5:30.
You probably go through a lot of laundry detergent.
Laundry detergent and laundry, we go through tons. And we're going to go through some brain drops when we come back.
Okay, I like to get questions for brain drops. Basic idea here is it easier to forecast weather on the East Coast compared to the West Coast? The idea is that you can watch the weather go across the country. West Coast doesn't get that luxury. The short answer is it depends where on the West Coast you're trying to forecast. Take a look at all the different climate zones on the West Coast compared to the Northeast and the East Coast. So if you're forecasting for Southern and Central California, it's not that difficult. The Pacific Northwest, though, is a pretty gnarly place to forecast, and part of the reason is look at the differences in annual precipitation from over 300 inches a year to almost nothing on the other side of the Olympic range. So you've got a big spread in a short period as compared to, take a look at the Northeast's version of this similar map. It's not nearly as extreme, and as we know, our weather can be extreme, but you see the white mountains, the green mountains, but you don't see these crazy gradients like you see the Pacific Northwest. So yes, if I went to San Diego, my job would be easier, but not necessarily in Seattle or the other Portland, as we like to call it in Oregon.
Well, you don't have to go to San Diego when you're in Maine, Diego.
Oh, I set you up inadvertently.
And there it is, everybody.
Maine, Diego. Newscenter Maine at 5:30 starts now.
Got it.